No, please do. This feels very United Nations right now. We feel like we should solve something. So my name is Michael Colman. I work as a voice actor amongst other forms of acting. So this is my open panel, I guess. So this is a chance for you to find out a little bit more, I guess, about what I do and who I am, and me to figure out you and who you are. How many of you guys were here yesterday for the? Was anybody here yesterday on how to get into the industry? No?
A little bit.
A little bit? Yeah, I remember you. Okay, great. So this is some new faces. So I'm just going to open it up with, maybe I'll explain a little bit about myself, and then we'll open it up to some questions if that works for you. That's normally how we do this. So with regards to who I am, again, I'm Michael Colman. I work on a lot of different things as a performer. So the reason I'm here is some of the anime experiences I've had. I got my start on a couple of shows several years ago called Cardcaptors, Ranma 1/2, and Dragonball Z. And then I've since worked on different titles such as Inuyasha, Gundam Seed Destiny, Dragon Drive, Infinite Revice, Simulator Game. What else? Transformers, a bunch of other different series. I also work in the world of live action film and television as a writer, director, and performer. So I've done a lot of different sci-fi stuff as well and worked in different movies. So I'm just gonna, and I have a bunch of wonderful tickets for a band called The Slants that is here today. So we will start out with, anybody has any fantastic questions, you'll win tickets to a concert tomorrow. We'll right off the gate.
I wanted to know what part you played in Stargate Atlantis, because I haven't seen every episode, and I don't know the side.
I haven't seen every episode either, and I'm not sure which episode it was in, but it'll be the episode with, my episode had a fellow by the name of Neil deGrasse Tyson, or Neil Tyson deGrasse, I always get it backwards. He's the guy who took Pluto away from being a planet, so that's his claim to fame. He also has Bill Nye the Science Guy and Dave Foley, so it's the four of us did an episode together. So I don't remember which episode it was, but it would have been in the later seasons. Yes?
How did you get your start? How did you know you could do the voices?
That's a really good question. How did I know? I got my start first as an actor first and foremost, and the anime specifically was completely accidental. But all the voice work was accidental. I actually didn't want to be an actor who waited tables while he waited for his career to happen. So my option was to do voice work. If you live in an area where they do voice work, it's actually really not that hard to get into. I got it simply by a call from my agent to just go in and start recording. I was actually offered a role on a show called Cardcaptors, just based on my film and television work. So, yeah.
So you probably have to have an agent if you want to get started.
Yeah, if you want to do this, if you want to do this in the professional world, then you need an agent. And then you need to live in an area where they do it professionally. So my understanding right now is Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, or Vancouver, where I'm from. Yeah. Yes?
I have a couple of questions. I'm very excited to meet you.
Sure.
First of all,
you.
I'm Japanese, and
Okay.
I know the voice work world in Japan is really competitive and very professional. So do you meet original voice, and you guys trying to meet with the original voice, or do you guys watch, voice over there?
That's a really good question. It depends on the project. So the difficult thing that an actor encounters whenever you redub something is that you never want to. It's actually it's an interesting fine line because it's actually considered disrespectful to steal another actor's performance. So on one hand, we never want to listen to the original Japanese and just do exactly what he did or she did, but in English, because it would actually be considered disrespectful to the performer. But at the same time, that's often difficult for fans of the shows to understand because they want everything to sound exactly the same, but in a different language and without the subtitles, in the case where they like the dubs. But in other cases, it depends. Sometimes, to be honest with you, some of the shows are so specific and so subtle that yes, we call it listening to the OJ, or the original Japanese. So we listen to the OJ on occasion to make sure that we're respectful to whatever the story is being told, and make sure that we do that. Yeah.
So, yeah, and another question is like, you said Houston's and Los Angeles because of it's a Funimation and Viz Media, is that why?
Yeah, it's Funimation and ADV, and then there's a whole bunch of companies in Los Angeles, and then up in Vancouver, we work primarily with a company called Ocean Studios.
Ocean Group, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I just wondering, two-part question. Which character did you play in Cardcaptors? And since it's notoriously being a very, I mean, no fault on your part, but a very bad dub. If they were going to do a redub, would you want to reprise your character?
To be honest with you, I don't know who I played on Cardcaptors. Cardcaptors was my very first series I ever did, and it was prior to me knowing that I would do more than one episode of one animated series. So I was just offered a role. I took the role, I played the role, and I had no idea that we would ever do any more animated voice work ever again. So I didn't really think about it after I left the studio. So I, to this day, have no idea what I did. Would I redub the role? I'm not sure, because I have no idea who I did, unfortunately, in that first series. So it was prior to me really knowing that this was an option. It was a horrible answer, but unfortunately the truth.
Okay, I have two questions. One,
Sure.
what voice were you in Ranma when that?
When I did Cardcaptors, I did Ranma in the same week. So it was one of these cases I came in and I did an episode of Cardcaptors, and I didn't know I'd go back into the studio ever again. And then I got a call from the same studio saying, hey, do you want to do a show called Ranma 1/2? And I was, sure, that was fun. So I actually have no idea. Those are the actually only two series I've ever done where I've got no idea what I did. I've got absolutely zero idea. I've even done a little research on it, and it's been hard to figure out. I haven't done enough research, to be honest with you.
The other question, what role or what episodes were you in Stargate SG-1?
Stargate SG-1, I only did one episode. I did an episode called Powers That Be. And I played Alexa Doig's assistant, and Alexa is married in real life to Michael Shanks, and she was I believe, the computer robot girl on Andromeda.
Is there a particular role that you enjoy doing in any of your works?
Yeah, in the voice work particularly, there's a few. One I really liked doing was, two series I really enjoyed were Hello Kitty and Hamtaro. Those are probably my two favorite.
What were you in Hello Kitty?
In Hello Kitty, I play a ninja dog named Inuyasha, and it was actually crazy fun just because it was Hello Kitty, so it was kind of neat to be a part of that franchise. And then in Hamtaro, it was fun because we got to invent our own language, and I kind of felt like a 3-year-old's version of Klingon sort of lore. So. Yes.
Is it hard in, I guess, mostly the older shows like Dragonball Z to do the dubs? Because I know the original Japanese versions took place about 7 years before Funimation did the dubs. Is it hard to do that after almost 10 years?
You know what, the weird thing about Dragon Ball Z was an interesting show in the sense that, because I actually did the Ocean Group version of the show. So, Dragon Ball Z was an interesting experiment where it kept being moved. So it would be recorded in, I believe it was Houston or Dallas, I believe. So, and then it went up to Vancouver, and then it went back, and then it came back to us. And we kept doing the ping-ponging the show back and forth. So, I don't know if you guys know the history of it, but it was one of these shows where the fans really did drive and dictate where the show was recorded. So originally when it was done in Dallas, my understanding was the feedback was that the show sounded a little too cowboy for what was happening on the screen. And so they brought it up to Canada, but then, and so The international community wanted it to sound less cowboy. They brought it up to Canada. And then the American community wanted it to sound more American. And then the international community wanted it to sound less American. Anyways, we ping-ponged it back and forth. And
What character did you play?
in Dragon Ball Z, so this is the first time I actually took notice, because I was like, okay, so this is the third show, I should probably start tracking some of this. I play a couple characters in the World Tournament saga, and I play Idasa and Moki, and a couple kids that fight Trunks and get beat up real good over several episodes. Yes.
On your page on the book thing, it says that you did a voice in X-Men. I was just wondering, like, who you were.
Oh, in X-Men, I play a character named Roberto da Costa, or Sunspot. So, yeah, when it's sunny outside, I'm very strong. When the weather's poor, I am very weak. Yes?
Are you expected to know how to sing well if you're a voice actor? Because I know a lot of voice acting jobs involve you have to sing even just a little bit, and some people won't take you if you don't sing. Like, is that so important, or is it not?
It's not crucial, but a bunch of us do sing. And in fact, most of the actors I know back home are either in a band or have been in a band. I do musical theater as well, so most of us sing. Yeah, but it's never been a prerequisite, to be honest with you. A lot of us started singing a little more seriously after we became known for our voice work. So. But you don't need to sing, but yes, many of us do. Any other questions? Okay, yes, go ahead.
So the agency assigned you a voiceover, or do you guys go audition to take the role? Or usually the agency tell you do this and that?
That's a really good question. It depends on the project. So a lot of times we are, we're just given roles. A lot of times the director or producer will just be familiar with your work and ask you to come in. And in other cases you'll audition for the role. For the roles, I did, for my roles down here in America, so I played a very small character in a series called Hellsing, and I've played a couple, like, again, my Hello Kitty was down here. For those I was just offered roles, and back home in Canada I would say half my roles I audition for and half I just get offered. Yeah.
So usually they'll have to be agents, you have to belong to agency, I guess, and then they'll tell you.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is, like, those of us who do it professionally, we put a lot of work into it, and a lot of us train very hard, and it's a very specialized skill. It's not the kind of skill that you have to have, inherent superpowers that you're born with, but it's something that we work very hard to do. So many of us who do this professionally put a lot of work into it. We have no more basic understandings of anything in the world than any of you. We just dedicate a certain amount of time to learn it, and therefore we get to do it professionally. So it's not the kind of thing that you could just walk in off the street and do, but anybody in this room that said, no, I want to allocate some hours to learning how to do it, yep, you could absolutely do it, without question. You just have to really want it.
I was just wondering, out of all of the characters that you have played, which would you consider your favorite?
Which is my favorite? That's such a tough question, and it's unfortunately it always gets the same stock answer.
Right.
It's difficult because your voices become like your children, and they're all a part of you. So it's like, which kid do you like best? I don't know, the oldest, the youngest. I don't know. It's really tough. I'd say, I really enjoyed out of all the voice work I've done, one of my favorites is Sunspot, because I've also become friends a little bit with the Stan Lee who created the X-Men, so that was kind of a cool thing. But it's really hard to say. I like them all. One of the things I got to do, I only did one episode of Transformers, and I played a human being, which is so weak. If you do Transformers, you want to be a Transformer. But it was still cool to be a part of a franchise that you grew up watching. So, yeah.
Maybe a bit part of that, because I always need the question, who's your favorite character? No voice actor can ever give a straight answer. I always know that. So I'd like to make it a little more specific, if applicable. Who's one of your favorite villains that you played?
My favorite villain was a character on a series called Project Arms. It was a smaller anime. I don't know if anybody's seen, but I killed little birds in it, and it was just it was so horrific, and it was one of the most disturbing things I've ever done in my life. And it really was disturbing. Even recording it, the very first time I killed the bird, I was just speechless, and I was there's absolutely no way that's what this is about. Did I just really do that? Seriously, what are we doing here today? Nobody should watch that. That wasn't healthy. That was not healthy. So yeah, that's probably my favorite villain I've ever played. But I don't play a lot of villains. I play a lot of young fighter pilots that don't get the girl, and I play a lot of little furry creatures that want to be more than they are.
I have another question. Where would be a good place to go to, like a school to go to improve your voice acting? Or what kind of tricks do you do that you can use to improve your voice?
Those are great. So let me start with the tricks, because I would say we definitely don't do tricks, but I know what you mean. What kind of tricks would I learn, or what kind of skill sets would I learn? First and foremost, you should learn how to play with your different resonators. So if you want to be a voice actor, you need to understand that your body really is an instrument. So the very first thing you need to do is learn what you sound like. So again, I don't know. There's only one or two of you that was here yesterday, so we'll get to do this again like it's brand new. So I'm gonna put this down. I probably don't need this at all, anyways. So what I'm gonna get everybody to do is just put your hand behind your ear like this for me for a second. Cup it really good. Cup it really good. And then I want you to take your hand, and then I want you to bounce the sound into the other hand, and so you can actually hear what you really sound like. So just talk to yourselves for a second. It doesn't matter what you say, but if you do this, people are often floored at how they normally sound. I have no idea that I sound this nasally and high-pitched in real life. Only when I do this do I sound ridiculous. This, I sound like Brad Pitt. When I'm not listening, that sounds really sexy to me. But then I do this, and I'm like, oh my goodness, is this really what I'm throwing at you? I apologize. So, the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what you really sound like. The next thing you need to do is figure out where your sounds come from. So, a lot of people, when I ask you to take a deep breath, a lot of people will do a deep breath from here. And they'll take the deep breath out of their chest. But your deep breaths don't come from your chest. So when you fine-tune your instrument, more tricks that we learn is we actually learn how to breathe properly. So a professional voice actor doesn't breathe from their chest because that's a false sense of breath. We actually breathe from our lower back, which is where our lungs really are. This is where we really can feel the power. And when we breathe, we and we find it in a deeper place. So one, we learn how to breathe. Two, we figure out what we really sound like. And three, we figure out what our resonators are. So we figure out what it sounds like from our deepest part of our diaphragm, which still is pretty high-pitched for me. And after we do this, then we figure out what it sounds like when we put it right here in our chest. So when somebody wants me to take a character that's older, but take this guy and young him up a little bit, great, then I know I just need to change the place. Now, if we want to take a character that's a little bit younger than what I did originally, but we want to make him a little bit more seasoned, well then I'm going to just put a little bit more of a throat into the character. And then if we want to absolutely change the character to somebody young and without experience, well then I'm just going to put them all right into my head voice. I'm going to take everything out of my chest and everything out of my throat, and I'm going to let him live right here. And then if I want him to be somebody that's a little bit more aggressive, I'm going to put all my voice right into the front of my mouth. And then if I want him to be a little more passive, I'm going to take them all and I'm going to put them right to the back of my mouth. And then this character here is less confidence per se than somebody who's way out here. And then if I want to take a character and make him slightly more innocent and less experienced, I'm going to let him live a little bit more in my higher register. And it's those sorts of things that we do, just as with regards to finding out the different tricks or piece of our tool. And we can do all the way up into our higher points of our head voice. And we don't do a lot of characters that sound like this for a reason. They sound silly. But we do things like that. And it's all those sorts of different characters we do. And you'll notice like some of the classic sounds that you'll hear. I mean, we want them to be cute and cuddly. We'll give them cute and cuddly and mischievous. So we'll incorporate a little bit of gravel and a little bit of higher pitch. And then we'll get into something that sounds more like this. And so this would be a character that is cute but kind of mischievous. And then if we want to make him evil, we generally give him a little bit more of an accent, so we give him a little bit of a British thing, and then he becomes something a little bit more like this. So there's just different things that we do with our tool to sort of find some archetypes or stereotypical ways we do our voice. So that was the first one. Second one, schools you would go to. Schools you would go to, I would only go to 2 locations if I were really serious. If you're really dead serious about being a voice actor, there's only two places I'd go. Los Angeles, and there's a few schools, or I actually own a school back in Vancouver. And my school, like the teachers are all Iron Man, myself, War Machine, a couple of Fantastic Four dudes. So my school, we have some pretty kick-ass dudes that do what we do. And then Los Angeles is the only place that does what we do as well. Any other questions? Yeah.
I have 2 questions since we're talking about resignation and stuff. Like, is a female voice actress like usually play like a younger boy? Because in Japan, like younger boy sounds, they actually assign for that. Later.
Yeah.
So do you guys do that?
We do the same thing up here. Like a really good friend of mine, Jillian, she plays a lot of the young boys in town. It's funny.
Saffron Henderson?
Sorry?
Saffron Henderson?
Saffron, sure, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different ladies that play the young boys. It's actually easier for the ladies to play the boys in many cases. You know, even with some of the more popular North American cartoons like The Simpsons, for example, the young boys are played by ladies. But by the same stretch, we do have young children come in and play young children. And we do have some young men. I myself have played some younger boys as well. It just depends on what our pitch is and where we can get our voice. Often we use ladies as boys because the ladies can sound exactly or closer to a young boy than a man can, but they'll have the life experience to be able to handle the material. Because often the children just won't have the life skills to be able to deliver the material. So, yeah.
I was gonna say, is this like a 9-to-5 job, and do you have kids? Do you read to them stories and use the voices?
I don't have kids. I have nieces and nephews that we have a lot of fun. We went to Disneyland this past August, so I can do a lot of, one of my things I do in the industry is voice matching, so we got to add some voices to a lot of the different experiences at Disneyland. That was a lot of fun for the kids. Yes, so I have no children, and no, it is not 9 to 5. It's although we do record Monday to Fridays between the hours of 9 to 5, we don't have a set schedule, and rarely would we ever record something like that. Most animation projects are recorded once a week. Different projects with different deadlines will, of course, have different time frames, but traditionally we record once a week or once every second week. And we'll go in for a long day at work. In a really excruciating day, like if we're doing a prelay series, which is like the North American superhero stuff, it's 4 hours. Sometimes they'll make us do an 8-hour day.
Isn't that where you throw that though?
Not really, because generally you're working in a group in that scenario, and you're only working for a very small portion of the episode, even if you're a lead. And then with anime, usually you can get in and out in an absolutely crazy long day in anime. Can be 2 hours. Usually half hour to an hour, get in and out, and we could do 4 episodes in that amount of time. We go pretty quick.
How often do you interact with your co-stars, and on a personal level, does it help or hinder you as a voice actor?
I interact with a lot of my co-stars back home through some of my better friends. My roommate for the longest time and I did a lot of different shows together. One of my favorite things is, so the series I did, Hamtaro, the owner of My Little Ham was actually my roommate at the time as well, so that was fun. And then he was Cyclops when we did X-Men together, and so we've done a lot of different shows together, which has been kind of fun. And yeah, so we've done, it's a pretty small community, so, and then I've got lots of friends from different parts of the world, from Houston and Dallas and Los Angeles, that are very good friends of mine, that when we travel around it works. In the anime world, it doesn't help out as much because we never are in the booth at the same time, so, and we rarely know who's playing what until the show's already aired. Or until it's already on DVD, and then when you're watching it, you're like, hey, you're in this. I know. You're in this? Yeah. Weird.
So you just see your lines, you're not seeing the whole script.
I just see my stuff. Yeah, so it's crazy. Super crazy. Yes.
Yeah, I'm an animation student, and I have a couple of questions. First of all, you know, I'm gonna be working on a lot of projects in the future.
Yeah.
So there's probably gonna be a few things that I'm gonna be voice acting myself. So I'm wondering, what are some good techniques for me to like practice voice acting? like, what are some good voice exercises? That's my first one. The second one, like, how often do, like, animators usually end up slipping into voice acting themselves? Like, I know, can they do that? Has it been done?
It can happen. There's a few people I've met that does happen with. It happens very rarely, but it does happen. Honestly, the best advice I can give you is focus more on the training of acting than on the training of vocal work, because it really is. It's funny because we get this brand of voice actors. But outside of these arenas here, we never refer to ourselves really as voice actors. Like, I work as a professional actor. I work in film, television, theater, and voiceover. But only in this arena do I ever label myself as voice actor. So I would say, first and foremost, make sure you've got your acting skills up to par. And then I'd just be really familiar with my resonators and my different vocal placements. I'd figure out triggers. So voice actors all have, we call them triggers. And so any of us who have a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen, 5 dozen voices, everything we do needs a trigger. So it needs like a catchphrase, or it needs a buzzword, or it needs a laugh, or something that allows us to get to the place we get to. So figure out your triggers, figure out your voices, figure out your resonators, and focus on the acting. That'd be my advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know you know this or not, but I'm gonna ask you, like, in Japanese they have some flavor of like Osaka dialect, and some Naruto they say that debayo, kind of like a flavor of saying things in Japanese in original. Like, how you cooperate for that to keep the same flavor and translate it in English?
That is a great question. There are different things that we do depending on the series, and it really does depend on the producer. It depends on the production company and how much they want to retain from the original Japanese. I can't remember what you've got down here. I think it's called Force 4 or 4 Kids Network. What's the one where they wreck everything?
4
Yeah,
Kids.
4 Kids.
Yeah. So they've got networks down here where they change things drastically and I would argue recklessly, without any desire to be even closely remotely related to what the original Japanese was. So in those cases, yes. There's been other instances though where we take a lot of time with it, and where they'll give the voice actors copies of the DVDs so they really learn those sorts of rhythms and subtleties. So it really does depend from production to production to production. I would say more often than not, we are less concerned about it, and unfortunately, as the performer, we rarely know very much about the project until the project is released to the masses. So by the time we know what would have been important, it's already been done. So we're always at the mercy of, and that's the responsibility of the director and the producer to really understand those things and convey them to us. And we do get different opportunities to learn things.
Yeah, sometimes it's disappointing because it's like lose the context of what it really is, and translating dub, and then you lose all those flavors and everything. So
absolutely, and there's different social acceptabilities in this nation than others. So there's often things that are tweaked to better suit the values of this community. I was as politically correct as I could ever say that.
Is it like a Japanese? Is it Japanese members in a production team, or is it all American?
Depends. There are always Japanese people involved. There's always like the people that make the most money are the Japanese people, and they're the ones that lead. Like, they're the ones that go to Japan but live here, and they're the ones that they license the material and they bring it here. Often they're the producers or the owners. You want to be that one.
How do I get into that kind of industry to be operating side?
You know what? I honestly don't know, because it's a really interesting. It's a freelance market, and it's competitive, and it's difficult in the sense that you take risks. So you can license a product from Japan, so you give them a bunch of money so that you can redo their production in English. Then you have to find a distributor here, whether it be straight to DVD or to television, and negotiate a rate with them. So you pay this guy this money for the license, but then you get this much money from this guy who's going to air your product, and then you have to pay all these guys to voice it and redo the music. There's a lot involved with it, lots of risks, but there's big companies that bank on on different sort of ideas that make some more profitable than others. And at the end of the day here, whether it's anime or North American cartoons, they're half-hour commercials for toys. So if you can't sell the toy, if you can't sell the manga, if you can't sell the accessory, we're not interested in making it. So we don't always want to just tell good stories with regards to our anime. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we definitely do. But a lot of times we really just want to sell the toy.
Right alongside that, I guess, like we use masks and all that, one big black sheep of anime would have been Zoids 0, which was aired for Cartoon Network for a while, and then it was actually canceled mid-broadcast, and to my knowledge, the only DVD release is in Australia on PAL Version 5. Any reaction to about that?
I don't know. I didn't do Zoids 0. I did a series called Zoids Fuzors.
I mean Fuzors. That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Fuzors.
and I actually own the Australian DVDs, but it's PAL and on not NTSC for anybody who knows anything about. So I can't play it on any of our North American DVD players. So I own them. I got no idea how it turned out because I can't find.
You can play it on your computer.
Was that?
Your computers don't worry about PAL.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then maybe I'll have to put it in my computer to actually play. I own the whole series, and I've got no idea what we did. It was one of the rare times I was like, we really need to see what we sound like. I'm going to go home and crack open Zoids Fuzors when I get home. I hope that does work. I've owned them for, ever. So, I don't know how, honestly, I've got no idea how that series turned out because it was only released in that format. None of us know. So, I don't know if it was awful. And we didn't air it anywhere in my country, so I've got no idea.
I sort of have 2 questions, but I swear they're small. First question is, just because you do voice work in anime doesn't mean you like anime, do you? I mean, are you a fan, are you not? And also, has there ever been a show that you've done voice work for that you didn't necessarily have to like or dislike the voice work itself, but the show you absolutely did not like? Like, have you ever had to do something like that?
Because those are really good questions. So first of all, no. And that always floors people. We don't have to like anime to record anime. It's just like, in the world of television, I record a lot of movies for a network called the Lifetime Network. So I do a lot of Mother's Day kind of movies. I don't like them. But I do want to keep working if you're watching. So the same thing goes with anime. At the same time, you'll find that most of us do. Most of us grew up with anime before it was called anime. Most of us who work in anime, it was just called Robotech. It wasn't called anime. It was just Astro Boy. So we grew up just watching cartoons that were different kinds of cartoons. That's how we grew up watching them. And then the more and more we work, it's interesting for voice actors particularly. Often we'll do shows or we'll get attached to the material because we've been involved in it ourselves. Or I've actually got one of my favorite series of all time is this silly little series called Princess 9. But most of my friends are in it, so and they all just really just sound like them. So when I put on my Princess 9 DVDs, I'm just hearing a bunch of friends of mine that I don't get to see very often. It's almost like having an eye chat with people that don't have to be in the room. So yes, many of us become fans of the anime based on that, and some of the material is amazing. Some of the storytelling is brilliant, and most of us love being exposed to non-North American forms of entertainment. Not because we don't like the entertainment that's done here, but it's just really helpful to the craft when you can see what the rest of the world is doing. Is there a show I've worked on that I didn't like? Well, it might be Zoids Fuzors from what I'm hearing here, but I'm not sure yet because I haven't seen it. I have yet to work on a show that I wouldn't watch. I think I've been really lucky that we work on a lot of mainstream titles where I'm from, and I think a lot of the products have been pretty cool. I can't think of one yet, but you never know. There's always something that could really suck. I just haven't done it yet. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any times that you and more than one person are in a recording booth?
Yeah. For prelay series, we're almost always more than one. So whenever we record North American animated series, we are all in a circle. We have a whole bunch of mics that all point towards us, all like this around in a circle, and we act off one another. In anime, the only time we're really in a group scenario is when a bunch of us are coming in that day, and they have a whole bunch of characters in the episode that aren't mainstream characters. So we'll all come in and play Fighter Pilot J or Fighter Pilot Q or those sorts of things, and then or we'll do crowd scenes together. So we do what's called Walla, But that's a lot of fun if you do like any sort of like, I don't know, fighting series. Because usually you just go in this booth and you all get to die together a lot. And that's actually kind of fun. It sounds weird and morbid, but it is. Like when you're all shooting each other, I don't know, it's a fun thing to do. Yeah.
Sorry, I have another question.
Sure.
When recording anime, you have to be able to sync up what you're saying to the animation that's already been done of the mouth movements. Is that like a really hard skill to acquire, or is it just luck or good writing, or are you given a certain amount of seconds to say your line? How does that work?
That's a really good question, and all 4 of your questions were actually the answer. So part of it is luck, part of it is it's really super hard to do at first, and then you learn rhythms and pacings of shows. You'll find that, and again, this goes back to your question earlier about sort of the rhythms and cadences of the different characters. We find that in anime, different shows have different rhythms with how they're written. A lot of it's good writing, or bad writing, and that has everything to do with, did the writers who translated it into English give us enough syllables to match? And they don't always do it. So there's a lot of times where we're editing on the fly, where the director's making a change or the director asks you, you got to say that with 4 less syllables. So what do you got? I don't know. So there's a bunch of that factors in. Through muscle memory, the more and more you do it, the easier it gets. And you start figuring out, as long as I speak at this sort of a pace here, and I know that, and we have what generally use a beep system in most of the world, everybody but Houston. Houston, they just freestyle. Houston, they just watch and try to match. I've done that a few times. I prefer the beeps. So what they do is we have these, it's called the 3 beep system, and it's beep, beep, beep. And where that 4th beep would be, you just know that's when I start acting. So it's an interesting way to go, and it's tough to do that because you feel like you're in a 100-meter sprint when you act, which is a hard way to recreate the emotion or the right intent, but that's how we do that with that. It's a lot of muscle memory.
Yes, because comment on that, I found out in the big, sub versus dub debates, the truth is both aren't really good, or not really correct, 100% translations, because dubs are limited by the mouth, the lip flaps, and subs are limited by just what they can flash there for your read.
That's exactly it. So there's different sort of technical complications that get involved, but yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, this feels like a good time to motivate questions with free tickets to the slants. So any questions will now result in a nice, yes. All right, and come grab your slant ticket when you're done.
Oh, question. God's not pop up. God ask. Yeah, like listening. So you are now really looking at screen to saying it. It seems like you have a timing, like a 3 syllable or something, and you're saying it. So you guys now watching what's going on.
Yeah, no, so it's difficult, and we move very fast in the world of anime. So generally when we work in anime, we have like a music stand that has our script on it. So we have a music stand with our script, then we have a TV set with the show we're watching, and then we have a director who also wants to watch him. So with all 3 of our eyeballs, which we all clearly have, not, we watch our script, we watch our TV, and we watch our director. And we watch all 3 at the exact same time. And while we're doing this, we're also trying to make sure we have all the same believability with our character. So it's incredibly hard. But it's a skill you develop. And you develop a 3rd eye.
Okay. I'll wait for other people.
All right, and this is your slants ticket. Yes.
What's the average amount of takes you'll do for like lines? Do you often do like just first takes, or is it just multiple for a whole lot? Or?
Depends. Often we do once you get into the flow of things, and if the line was written well, you will get. It'll usually take you 2 times to do it. We watch it once just to sort of figure out what the exact rhythms were, and then you'll nail it the second time. A lot of times we'll hit it in the first try. On occasion, we could do it over 10, 15 times. That's generally when the line was written incorrectly, and we do 6 or 7 takes where we blame the actor because he can't do it, and then we admit, well, maybe we didn't write the right amount of words. Yes?
I was just wondering, in Mega Man and 2 Warrior, the character you played, Techno, were you like a main character or just kind of a couple episodes?
A couple episodes guy. But it's so funny, I totally forgot about the series that I did until there's a little dude dressed like Mega Man here this weekend. I was like, oh yeah, I totally did that show. That was wicked. But yeah, just a couple episodes of. I actually played a whole bunch of characters on that show.
Like single episode characters?
Yeah, but and some had a couple episodes. I played a character named Brightman. There was a bunch of guys I played, but it was one of those shows that just had so many characters in it that we kept track as best we could.
Yeah, I was wondering, did you ever do any work in the Star Wars franchise?
No. I've auditioned for different things, but I've never actually performed with the Star Wars guys, which I'm actually not hugely disappointed in. Growing up, I was a huge Star Wars fan, and George Lucas seems to do everything he can to absolutely piss me off every time he gets a chance. I feel like he's got a personal thing against me. So I wish he would just stop touching his stuff. Yeah.
Is there any big name voiceover actor who's notoriously hard to work with?
They're hard to work with?
Yeah. Not to single anybody out, but
Yeah. Absolutely there are. Just like in every workplace, there's some egos involved occasionally, and their names are. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, absolutely there are. There's some people that, yeah.
What was it like to voice a hamster? I know you did
Stan from Hamtaro was fun. It was interesting to voice a hamster. He kind of launched me into doing a whole bunch of different kind of characters like that. So it was fun. I like those sort of crazy reality worlds where things talk that shouldn't be talking. I like when little furry creatures talk or inanimate objects talk or whatever the case may be. I like that kind of stuff. I think it was fun. It was super fun.
In Stargate Atlantis, what was your role played in that? And I also have a second question. What was the age that you started and the schooling you had to go through to get where you are today?
Good question. Oh gosh, I always remember who was in the episode. It's so funny when you do something like in Stargate Atlantis, like you never say your own name. It's kind of like I never remember my own phone number because I never call it. In Atlantis, that was the episode. I did one episode, and it was with Bill Nye, Dave Foley, and Neil. And I can't remember what character's name would have been. I know everybody else in the episode because I would say, hey, blah, blah, blah. I had no idea. If I remember, I will come back to you on that. And then when I got to, this is all I've ever done. So I was not different than a lot of people here in the sense that, you know, I just eventually turned, instead of cosplaying, when I grew up we did air bands. But I went from just acting for fun to eventually people started paying me to do it. And then I just didn't ever want to get a different job. So I just did this until somebody would pay me for it. So, yeah, you know, I didn't wait to be good at this to start doing it professionally. I just had the audacity to just say this is what I'm going to do. So I've been doing this since elementary school. Yeah. Yeah.
What was the strangest character that you did?
Strangest character I did. Like in the world of voice work? Strangest character. It's a tough one. I think the dude who ate the birds. Like that was weird. Like he just bit heads off and stuff. That was weird. That's probably my strangest character yet. I thought that was a weird dude. I don't think anybody should ever eat a bird. Unless it's like chicken. Yeah.
Is it possible to voice multiple characters in the same episode?
Yeah. In fact, it's almost imperative to voice characters in multiple characters in the same episode because it's cheaper for producers. And it's not like producers like us. They like cheap. So, because they can get our voice cheaper if we do more than one character. Almost every episode of everything we've ever done, we do lots of characters. I did I'm trying to remember what the heck the show was. Hikaru no Go. I did a series called Hikaru no Go, and totally forgot I did that. But there's episodes, I think it's like in one of the first 4 episodes, and I hear it. I only hear me, but I feel like I'm every dude. Like, and I'm like, it just sounds like one guy talking to himself a whole bunch of times. So apparently it was good enough for everybody else, but to me it just sounds like me talking to me. But yeah, that's very common, very common. Any other questions? And I do have one ticket left. No worries. I think I was hiding that from you. Yes.
When you do go to school for all your different trades that you do have you had to go like into a master's or?
No, and to be honest with you, we avoid those. So to be honest with you, those of us who work professionally, we don't usually go through universities. Universities generally produce acting teachers for high schools. Those of us who work professionally, we go to professional training and we work with people that train professionals. Like even myself, I own one of the largest schools on the western side of this continent, and I still train. I'm training with Leonardo DiCaprio's coach at the end of November. So we just always find different ways to find new ways to learn the craft at a deeper level. And we don't really, nobody ever wants to see a diploma or certificate or anything like that. People generally want to know, who did your coach work with, and what has your coach done? Again, even myself as a coach, people train with me because of the stuff I've done rather than diplomas or certificates I give out. I give out diplomas, because it's part of the mandate, but they mean less to us than what has your coach done. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested in going to the industry in the, like a director type of stuff.
Okay.
Like I have a pretty background for film and theater, Japan and here.
Okay.
So I just wonder like how I can go into anime industry for like, kind of directing for voice actor here and stuff. Like, I just wonder how we can get in.
That's a really good question. So first of all, you would have to geographically be in a place where they do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went to a place where they record that sort of stuff. And the second thing would be to have something on, I don't know what your resume or training is, but to have something that reflects that you're capable of it.
Yeah.
And often it would just simply be an interview, and if they have a hole or a vacancy for that sort of thing. And you'd be surprised how often they do.
Who's they though? Like, who I can
sure.
approach it?
Down here you would approach people like ADV or Funimation, and you'd send them a letter of intent. If you had any directing reels, like if you had any copies of work you've done, you could do that, for sure.
The Ocean, use the Oceans and ADVs also.
Yeah, and even then, like back in the Ocean group, even with the amount of stuff we do, we only have like 2 or 3 directors that do all of the work.
Really?
James and Carl do a lot of our series, and there's I think 1 or 2 more people that are inching their way in. It's very difficult. It's even as hard as it is to be a voice actor. It's even harder to be a director. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No worries. Any last questions? Okay. Well, that is actually pretty close to our time, anyways, here today. So thank you very much, you guys, for coming out. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's the deal with because this is modern. You don't have to worry about PAL, but you still might have to worry about the reading code because
that's what I think I might. Yeah.
Because with the computer is, Windows and Win option switch to reading coding, but eventually you can only switch to so many times. Eventually the DVD-ROM will be fixed to that reason.
Okay.
So, like for my case, actually I got I got 3 DVD-ROMs for each one, 2, 3.
Oh, really? Okay.
But sometimes you might be lucky, like my Korean version of Spiders Next, even though it says region 3, it is somehow region 3. It works in my region 1, no problem. And same with my the European version of Azumanga Dial. It has the German and the British and actually the North American version, but apparently it also somehow it says 2-1. It's true, yeah.
I'll check it out. I'll try it. I'll try it.
And otherwise, like I said before, I just got cheap old DVD-ROMs.
Yeah.